That's a great start, isn't it? First piece I cut and I don't even cut it right. Hello. December daily box day today. Now, can I do this again? This is my prototype. Really happy with how it turned out. A lot of you have said you've had either trouble purchasing this because it's now out of stock, so I apologise, or that you were only able to buy these in 3s. No, I bought 4. I didn't realise you could only buy a minimum of 3, so I apologise for that. What I'm going to do is, having asked in the Facebook group, is make one from cardboard, and this is pretty sturdy. All you need is a metal ruler, a craft knife, a pencil, some tape. You probably need a pair of scissors and your cardboard. You will also need a cutting mat. So now I've made one straight cut, so I know this is a perfectly straight edge, and I'm going to do all of my cutting based on this flat edge. So this particular one, in true Tracie Fox style, I didn't actually measure. It was done with straight lines and marking with a pencil. I didn't measure this. I have made some measurements for the box we're going to make now, and I think it's going to be pretty similar. I'm going to show you these, but I'm going to show you them again at the end, because I don't think this is going to make a lot of sense to you for now. The first thing we need is a base, and we need that 4 1/4 by 7 1/4 inches. And I'm using inches because that's kind of more straightforward for most of you. So I need to make sure I've got a straight edge, and I'm going to line this up. Hopefully you can see flat edge with the line at the side of my cutting board. You might need to cut your cardboard down if you don't have a big ruler like I do. So I'm going to cut 7 1/2 inches, and I'm using the top and the bottom lines. You can't see, unfortunately, because my camera doesn't reach that, but I'm going to cut the 7 1/2 inches first, and I'm going to use a few smaller cuts rather than try and go straight through. That's always better. I do have a little bit of a slipping problem when I cut because my desk is very warped. It's a really old wooden table, so I'm going to put that aside. Now I want this piece. I want a piece 4 1/4. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to cut a straight edge. So I'm going to line this up with a line on my mat and just pick an edge, pick a line to get a straight edge. Now I'm going to turn that around, so I know these edges are all straight. I'm going to line it up again on my board. Any line will be fine, and I want this 4 1/4 wide. So I've got 1 2 3 4, and then I've got quarter lines on my board, which again, I'm sorry you can't actually see. Okay, so there is my base. Okay, let's just double check that. I'm going to use my ruler. Oh, I've done it to 7 1/2. There you go. Let's do 7 1/2. 7 1/2. I'm sorry. 7 1/2 by 4 1/4 ish. That's 4 1/4 ish. So we've got our base. It's fine, we can get another couple of tags in there now at 7 1/2 rather than 7 1/4. So I'm going to just quickly change these measurements on here. That's a great start, isn't it? First piece I cut and I don't even cut it right. Okay. That should still leave my other measurements fine, actually. That should still be okay. So I've got these still as my straight edges, and what I need now is I need these pieces to go. I need 2 pieces to go at the ends, the thin ends, and I need those to be 3 inches high. So I'm just going to cut a piece 3 inches. Another piece of 3 inches. So I think that's going to be fine. I think that's going to be fine. Just going to make sure they're the same height. Perfect. These are going to be the ends of my box. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to make sure they are perfect, rather than do the measurement, which should in theory be 4 1/4. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to line these up, make that side flush against that cardboard, take my pencil, and I'm just going to draw a line. And I'll do that with this one too. I'm just terrible with measuring and spelling. Okay, so I'm going to use my smaller knife this time. I'm just going to cut where I've made those lines. And they do. Fabulous. We're getting there. We're getting there. So the next thing we want to do is I want to make the sides. Now I'm going to make my sides 3 inches high. Okay, so they're the same height as these, but I'm going to make them 8 inches. This is 7 1/2. I'm going to make these 8 inches because I want to make sure I get this accurate. So I'd rather trim off a little bit off the end. So these, I need 2 pieces that are 3 inches by 8 inches. So we have our 2 ends and our 2 sides, and they are going to be slightly too big at the moment, but that's fine. We want them too big. Just check all of these are exactly the same height. So I'm going to put the long edges aside for a moment. I think I'm going to have the green on the inside. So I'm going to place them on my board like this. I'm going to take my masking tape and I'm just going to tear off a strip that's long enough to cover the width, and I want it half on and half off my centre, my base. So the next thing, I'm just going to quickly trim off the extra masking tape without cutting the cardboard. We don't want to cut the cardboard. Obviously it is only cardboard, so it will cut with the scissors. Okay, now I'm going to take my ruler and fold this tape back against my ruler, and I can see quite well where this needs to line up. So I'm going to line it up so it's flush at the edges, push my ruler against this end piece and just slowly push that tape. And use your finger to just push that across. Take your time, there's no need to rush. That, and I've literally just pierced that with my nail, which is not ideal. I'm going to just have to put another piece of masking tape along there now. I'm going to flatten that. So that's our first piece. Honestly, this one, smooth as you like, but of course I'm filming this one, so it's going to go wrong. Let's do the next piece. So tear off a piece of tape, half on, half off. Going to trim it. Oh, that's fine if that flats down. Wrap that over my ruler. Line up the side, push the ruler into that corner, and just slowly push that tape down. So we have that. They feel nice and flush at the edges. That's great. That's what we want. And now what we need to do is make sure this is the right size. So I'm going to put that down and I'm going to open my ends. I'm going to line up at these corners. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Making sure this is flush with the edge of that panel. Once I've got that flush, I'm just going to come across to this side and using my pencil I'm going to make a little mark. Okay, now I'm going to just use my guides on my board to line that up. Use my ruler and I'm just going to cut off that extra piece. Now it may not be completely perfect, but once you've got the tape on, it kind of covers up any small mistakes. And now I'm going to cut the second panel exactly the same. That, okay. Well, it's not too bad. It could have been worse. It could have been worse. So what I want to do is attach this to both of to the bottom and the side, but I'm going to start with the bottom. This is a little bit more tricky, and I'm going to start by taking a piece of masking tape, open the flaps, and I'm going to lay this down. Again, half on, half off. Now, I didn't make that long enough, so let's add a second piece of tape. And I'm just going to trim these tiny little bits that are hanging over. Okay, so got that. Close that. Just fold that tape over and just take a little bit of time. Line up with the corners here. Just holding that in place, holding it up, pushing that really gently. Just going to flip it on its side, push this tape down. Okay, so that's 3 of our 4 sides so far. It's looking okay. It's looking okay. So next piece of masking tape, this side. So we have almost a box. Here's where it's going to get a little bit difficult because I had to hold it like this to get my pieces in, but this time I'm going to do the outside of the box before I do the inside. So let's start from the bottom. Let's start from the bottom. We've got a pretty flat bottom now. Should be okay. So what I'm going to do is tear a piece of tape off, roughly the width, half on, half off, push that down, fold it over the edge. And again, I'm not going to push too hard at this point because I don't want to move any of the pieces of tape on the inside. Trim. I'm going to do this side. Now I'm going to do these sides. So I'm just going to hold those in place and put my tape on. Now I'm going to trim those. Now what I need to do is, while I'm doing this, I'm holding the corner of my box to make sure I don't push that inside the box too far. And just finally trim off any small pieces. Right, now it's a case of carefully doing all of these outside corners, but making sure you're holding them in place when you put your tape down. So we actually have a fairly sturdy box already now, but what we do want to do is we want to put some covering on the inside. You can use a piece of folded cardstock. So I'm going to cut some pieces of scrap card. So these pieces are 3 inches by 2 inches, and I'm just going to literally fold these in half. Okay, so they're 3 inches by 2 inches folded in half, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue those into my corners. So I'm going to use my collage medium. Okay, so there we go. All of those corners are in place. So we have one thing left to do, and that is to finally just give this one more going over with the masking tape. And I'm going to do all 4 corners first. So I'm just going to grab a piece of tape, pick a corner, hold it and pull it down over that corner. So we have the corners are kind of, we start at the corners to edge them, so we're edging the top with the masking tape, and it also just holds that paper in the cardstock in the corners just in place a little bit more. And this is everything I'm doing now, is just making this box super sturdy. Okay, so before I go around the top, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a row of masking tape just slightly short of the top, just to make sure these corners are being nicely held. You could always obviously put more masking tape on the top. So the last thing I'm going to do is just roughly tear a piece of tape to size, put that half on my box, and I'm just going to cover those last pieces of top like so. So that's it, our box is done. It's very sturdy, very secure. It wasn't quite as smooth sailing as the other one, so I do apologise, that didn't go quite to plan, but then things never do for me. So the measurements, let's put them on one more time. Hopefully this is, you can see this. So we have 4 1/4 by 7 1/2 for the base. Then we need 2 short sides, which are 3 inches high by 4¼ inches wide. We need 2 of those. The long sides I've made 3 inches high by 8 inches wide, but those ones we trimmed to make sure they fit the side once the other 3 panels were together. I hope that makes sense. I'll put this list in the description box down below. There is our box. Now you have a million ways that you could possibly decorate this box. I am going to grab my paper trimmer and some Christmas cardstock. So this is probably overkill, but I'm going to use these. I'm going to have the Let It Snow on the outside of my box, but I'm going to do the inside first. Now, we know roughly what these measurements are going to be. The first thing I'm going to do is cut a panel for my base. And I know that's going to be a little bit smaller than 4¼ by 7½. It's going to be a little bit smaller than that base. And now we need to do the outside panels, which is a little bit easier because you can use a pencil. So I'm going to line my paper up with my box, use my pencil, put a little line, and I'm going to cut. So we have all our pieces, but what I do need to do is paint all the way around I'm only going to do the inside corners actually, and I'm not going to paint the outside. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back for the next bit. Okay, I'm back. What I've done is I've already gone ahead and glued all of my sides and inside into place. You can see there's a few little marks there where you can see the white paint, but you know, I'm not worried about that. I'm going to use some texture paste, and it's the Crackle from Ranger, and I'm going to use it all the way around the top and down some of the sides and just splatter a bit about. Then I'm going to dry it, and I have used just some really cheap and cheerful snowflakes with some Tombstone mica stain with a bit of water on, and I'm going to just sort of dot them around, really, maybe somehow. I'm not sure exactly, but we're going to use those. They're just drying at the moment. So I'm going to grab my paste, and I'm going to start by just spreading some around the top, and I want to make sure that I fill those holes at the edges. Now I've just gone round the outside of my box, just all around the edges. I thought it worked well because it's Let It Snow, so I'm just going to give that a dry. It's not perfectly dry, but it's almost dry. You can see the cracks have started to appear, which is fabulous. So I'm just going to kind of dot these about really. I'm not sure if I would like, I think I'd like one on the front, so I need to decide what's the front. I think I'm going to have that as the front. It's definitely not dry yet. I'm going to put that there. So, I mean, you could use snowflakes that are already coloured. You can buy glittered ones, all sorts. But I'm just going to use these as with the stain on. And one over here. I mean, you can decorate these any way you like. You can make any adjustments as well that you need to for the size of your box, but I think for a couple of pieces of cardboard and a couple of pieces of cardstock, that's not too shabby really. So there you go, that's my cardboard box finished. I don't have any of the December dailies made so far this year, but these are from last year's Mega Mix and Match, and you can see they are a pretty good fit for this box. Right, I need to crack on with my actual box. I'll certainly find something to do with this one, but for now that's going to just sit and finish drying, so I will see you again soon. Bye.